All right, friends. Well, welcome back to Dr. J Radio Live. We are sorry for all of you who have waited this entire time. Now, Joe Montaldo had to reschedule for an emergency tonight. So guess what? You have direct link to moi. That is me, Dr. J, broadcasting from the city of Angels, folks. So anybody has any questions here and you want to call me? Fine. Call in. You can call me on Skype. First of all, you'd have to find me on Skype. Or just call in the call-in number, my own call-in number, not the UPRN, which is 818-491, hold on, let me double check it for you, 3348. I just want to make sure, because I have two, one abandoned, one new one. And I want to hear what you guys have to say. See, tonight we were going to go deep. I really wanted to find out about the RH negative. Yeah, 818-491-3348. I will put this in the chat, and let's see what kind of takers we have for this evening. Otherwise, we'll just we'll reschedule with Joe and we'll have another night. Let's see which one of you here. Oh, you know what? I know somebody who might be able to rock it on. I'm gonna be right back. Let's find out if I can get someone in here who can chit chat with me about some either quantum physics or about ETs, grays, anything. Anything. I really want to know what we don't know, all right? I mean, it seems to us like we're wasting life. We go to school, we wake up at an alarm clock, then you get a job, you get a mortgage. It seems like we're running someone else's plan. Well, why the hell are we here in the first place, right? Who put us here? Why the hell is our oxygen such a small percentage of what we breathe in? Which means that, do we even belong on this damn planet? Is it ours? I mean, clearly history shows that we've only been here for a blink of it. So let me see here if I can ask this one person who is scheduled for next week to come in today. Hang tight, folks, and let's find out. So, let me see if I got anybody here who's got any questions in the chat or something you'd like to start off with. Okay, now, thank you, Wow Signal 75. Yes, that Richard Doty was fire. That show was fire, absolutely, and I'll tell you why. Because remember, if those of you who caught that little special stream, I guess you could call it, that I did that following Saturday after that, where I basically told them on my own personal NDE, near-death experience, I also told you what happened during and after the Richard Doty interview. If you all recall that were listening to, especially Wow Signal 75, he said that he had been briefed along with 5 other people into that program, the ET program. I believe he said he was 82 or 83, and he said it was a full bird colonel who did the briefing. And after they viewed a 20-minute film, they had a Q&A which lasted for about an hour. Immediately, if you recall, what I said was on the air, I said, and he said about a minute of the footage was released. So I said, was it the Skinny Bob footage? If you recall, his answer was, I don't know, I'd have to see it. And if you don't remember after that, I actually read it, his email response after I showed him the footage, which he said that it was the exact same footage and it was just a clip of it. Now, sure, I'd like to see the other 19 minutes of that briefing footage. And you know what? If this briefing footage was shown 37 years ago or 36 years ago, can you imagine what kind of briefing footage exists today? And who would be giving it? If it was still the Air Force OSI, or is it a whole group altogether? Now, here's my own personal argument for this. A lot of people say the government this, the government that, the government cover that. You know what? I am surprised, especially when you come back to Roswell and you come back to other instances that involve military installations, and especially Roswell, where it seems they were caught off guard because it was not the first time. I think that now, more than likely, in order to protect from laws, transparency, and things like that, especially since the Freedom of Information Act, I am pretty sure, and this is just my own two, pieces of information, that all of these gadgets and bodies and everything you expected to define at the Blue Room at Wright-Patterson is probably locked up in a private corporation. Think about it, folks. We have private corporations, private military corporations, which PMCs as they're called. And I'm going to get in trouble for this, and I've said this before. My own brother is involved in this, not in an ET program, but hey, I'll tell you guys a little story here, and Steve, if you're listening, I know you're going to get mad, so this is what I'm going to tell you. Now, he never believed in any of this stuff. I mean, no matter what was shown to him, no matter who had a very credible story, no matter who he was around, because mind you, if you've been paying attention to this show, you've seen some guests who have been involved in ufology since, longer than I've been alive. And if you guys have been listening to Stanton Friedman, well, he's in his 80s, okay? And so he just dismissed everything, like completely, just even without a doubt. Hey, if it's non-terrestrial, it just doesn't exist to him. One day, he came back, or 1 week after visiting. He's visiting right now. See, I'm kind of breaking down this where he's at in Kuwait, working for a private military contractor. And he said that if I wanted a job working for the private PMC, that he could help me get one, and I just wasn't interested. He said, you could get paid to look for ETs all day. And I did a double take. And I said, what do you mean ETs? You don't even believe in ETs, UFOs, or any of that. I said, what the heck happened? What happened to you over there that made you now not only believe, but are telling me I have a job available waiting for me in Kuwait? Well, this is what he said, that since it's a private military corporation, clearly you have to have been in the military beforehand. So a lot of people hold clearances, etc. One of the people he'd been working with, actually his roommate at the time, was a retired 4-star general in the Army, getting paid $500,000 a year to use the most sophisticated equipment paid for by Uncle Sam, right? Uncle Sam, to look for UFOs in our atmosphere. Now, this was the crazy part. He said that, let's just say, for example, that there was discs by the moon. And by the time they were able to focus this equipment on the moon, these craft, it's almost like they could read these people on Earth who were chasing them, their thoughts, and would disappear and go somewhere else. That was one of the crazy things. So they move all their telescopes and all their equipment, like electronically controlled, to aim it at, say, like I said, the moon. And then all of a sudden they just go on the other side of the sky, and then they refocus the equipment. It was constantly a dog chase. And here's the other thing, is they were looking for types of craft, size, clearly shaped when I say types. And another important thing was there a pattern? And the only pattern they found was that there is no pattern, that there's no rhyme or reason why these craft were traveling in various directions for whatever reason. The only thing that they came up with is they're not acting regularly in accordance to any of their plans, anything predictable. That's the keyword, predictable. There's nothing to predict except that you can't predict them. And also, I've always argued this, that was the story of why he believes that. So to me, private military corporations are the ones who's got these bodies and these craft and the technologies. Now, if all you remember, depending on how old you are, after the SR-71 was released, they gave us the stealth. And this was not that long after. You had the F-117 and the B-2 stealth bomber. We're all going to air shows to watch these and meet the pilots and all this and that. Well, I mean, that's pretty advanced. If you went back 30, 40 years before that, which I wasn't that old, I mean, a flying wing, you would have thought that straight out of movies. But just look at how advanced we got in that short amount of time. Now, I believe the year was sometime in the late 80s, maybe 89, because I remember George Herbert Walker Bush was during the president at the time when they unveiled this craft. Now, in order for them to unveil this, for people to know in the general public what they're really doing and what they're really working on is really far in advance. I mean, the technology's got to be so good that it's got to make what we have available to us look like shame. Make us shame us, literally. Shame themselves. They have to outdo themselves every single time. And if you remember, what's the guy's name from Skunk Works? Ben, blanking out of his name. He's the famous one who gave the speech at the UCLA Engineering Department, where Jan Harzan, the MUFON International Director, said that at a alumni speech for the engineering department at the very end of his presentation, there was a slide that showed a disc. And these very famous sentences were said. One, we now have the technology, and we have technology in the Nevada desert that will, I'm paraphrasing this, that will make Star Wars look like nothing, or something to the like. And the other statement is there was a problem with the equations and we fixed it. Now, what kind of problems would you think, and what equations is he talking about? And then I'll find out his name for you, and I'll tell you what it is. The point is I think the equation that he was talking about had to do with gravity. I mean, what else? What else are we trying to solve? If you ask Bob Lazar, if you have a chance to at least, or if ever of you had a chance to see him at the 2015 UFO Congress, at the very end, when he was interviewed by George Knapp, he said that the missing piece to the puzzle, that would literally be the missing piece of the pie, the human pie, is anti-gravity. He said because, in quote, that everything that's in science fiction you could throw out the window by lunch if anti-gravity becomes true. And apparently it is true, is what Bob Lazar says, because of what he saw with his own sports model. Now, here's the other thing. Remember, it's not just faster than light travel. That's why these craft blink out. They blink out because they're going into another dimension, an Einstein-Rosen bridge, also known as a wormhole. By doing that, you also have the ability to cloak yourself. And if you're going through dimensions, what else are you transcending, folks? Time. You're transcending time. Now, I didn't look up this name, and I'll find it for you if you really guys want to know who it was from Skunkworks. Maybe someone else in the chat wants to say it, but clearly no biters yet. Ben Rich, yes, thank you. Spook, did I say this right? Spook, can you save me? Yes, Ben Rich, that is absolutely right. And so, if he was saying this when Jan Harzan was attending UCLA at the engineering department, well, then what has transpired since then, aside from the rise of these private military corporations? And if you recall, when I was speaking to Joshua P. Warren, he made this breakthrough announcement that something in the Nevada desert there was a breakthrough at S4 or Area 51. And he said it had something to do with Harry Reid. If anybody in the chat knows about this, maybe you can tell me about this very document. And it seemed to be that the projects they were working on at S4, things like Bob Lazar was working at, essentially they're all coming to one project, which is how can we make artificial gravity? That's all you need, folks. Once you make that, your puzzle is solved. And he was able to come with a document, and it had one line redacted from the bottom of it. And it described in detail and each in numbers, right? It numbered each of the different things he could do, including faster than light travel, everything I was telling you before, wormholes, cloaking, like invisibility, which is cloaking. The final thing that was not on there, but was redacted, I personally think, and I've asked this to Joshua P. Warren, is I think it's got to be time travel. Why would you talk about gravity, anti-gravity, and talk about other dimensions? Actually, I don't think that was dimensions, because dimensions, that would just be giving away. I'd challenge for anybody out there, if you could find that document, I'd love to read that out loud. But that was the one thing I would like to find out. Now, here is something else. Let's see if we can get something else going here, stirred up here. I'm going to look for in the chat if I can get past this, get this going here, folks. Now remember, because I am not going through UPRN tonight, you can call in directly to me if you guys want to call at 818-491-3348. If anyone wants to be a taker, tell her a story, asking me a question. I've told you guys all the private stories I have. I don't really have any more, but hey, feel free to ask. So again, it's 818-291-3348. I'll put it in the chat again if you guys want to join me. 818-291-3348. So back to this document about this breakthrough from Joshua P. Warren in the Nevada desert. Why do I think it's time travel? Because that's the only thing from artificial gravity that was not mentioned. And why would it be redacted? Well, think about it. Because of the ripple effect, paradoxes. If you had the ability to go back and travel, and the smallest thing you do that you may think does nothing can alter the timeline forever and literally break it off like a river they talk about. That would literally be a point where that it would form a new river. People that are in power now may not be in power. Heck, you might have a nuclear annihilation. You might go back to the past and you may have caused something that when you return to the future, there is no future. Or things like that. That's why I think time travel would be the most protected, guarded story. Some of you folks here who are on YouTube Nation have probably heard of Apex TV. Now, I'm not trying to say anything about anybody who's traveled through time if, in fact, they're telling the truth. The only thing I gotta say is, if those people are telling the truth, they can't answer some pretty basic questions. But they all seem to agree on one thing, and it's kind of shocking. They say that in 2028, not only are we going to be told about the existence of aliens, which, if you really think about it, we already been going through this disclosure for, a period of time. We're getting acclimated to it. And that's why here, which friend of it, quite a few friends are asking for Tom DeLonge, is that Tom DeLonge was responsible for getting those from Freedom of Information Act, those 2 DOD videos of craft that were filmed where pilots were essentially describing what was happening. Anyhow, let me look in the chat real quick. Let's see here. Lars Saturn, why the big secret about the aliens? The population, I think the majority of the time want to know, keep it secret if only true. Okay, now, I think exactly, Lars, this is exactly why a lot of people to this day fear that they don't want to tell us about ETs. And I think it's really stupid, because I think us humans are way smarter than that. I think the real reason they're trying to cover this up is because of the technology. And as a matter of fact, who was it here? I have to make sure I'm watching the chat. Wow Signal 75, when you referred to the Richard Doty show, Rick Doty. One thing about him that he told me was that he's allowed to talk about aliens, but he did tell me before the interview, if we hit a point that has to do with something that he can't answer, that's still classified, I said, just say that and we'll deflect to another question. And I said, just so I can get a type of what kind of questions, what can't I ask? Yeah, clearly we're talking about aliens. And he inferenced not to ask any questions about technology or about medicine. Basically anything that could extend our life or anything like that, or anything that could be used for commercial applications or military applications was still classified. Now why? Think about it, folks. Money is the number one factor, and of course military. If something has military applications, clearly it skyrockets to the top. Now, other people still say, well, if aliens were to exist, you would have religions collapse, you'd have politics become in shambles, you'd have economies collapse, you'd have people flipping out. Well, that may have been so when Orson Welles read The War of the World in the 30s, but people then were really far more religious. If you think about it now, and people were polled around this planet, I guarantee you there's a higher number of people who not only believe that there is intelligence out there, that we in fact have been in contact with this intelligence for a long time. So I think that is the main reason right there. Let's see who else here. Yes, Lars, as you mentioned, Ben Rich, back on Ben Rich, as we were saying, the other one was the technology to take ET home. So first statement that he made that blew everybody's socks off, because it really had no business with any part of his presentation that he had to do. And that was actually the start of Jan Harzan's personal search into UFOs, which for him practically ended up being the international director of MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, was, of course, one, we have technology in the Nevada desert, which again, I think he said something about either make Star Wars look better than Star Wars, like something like that. But the other one, when he showed that disc, that was the first statement he had made, was we now have technology to take ET home. And I thought, of course, that was very, very telling. Yes, Lena Frank, you are absolutely right, because usually by this time I am usually asking and listening to someone talk. Let's get a sip here, and I'm going to get a cigarette lit while I'm talking to you fine folks, because we could take this as long or as short as we got it, because we rescheduled with Joe Montaldo. Okay, now I'm going to go in reverse order here. Thank you, Lena Frank. I do appreciate it. That I did need that. That's a fact. Okay, here, Lars. I ultimately see that this technology hurting us, dopamine triggers, etc., it can be easily used to influence the masses. You know what? And I think at the same time, one of the reasons we are not told about these aliens or any of these technologies is because we are gophers. Think about that. What better class of people to use in these experiments than a mass population? Where else can you test these sort of equipment? Where else can you do tests like, now it's kind of old MK Ultra, but people liken the New Zealand massacre to MK Ultra assignment meant to scare people about guns. But that's a whole different story. But it goes just to show what they can do to people. And what happens if you can make people convinced that something is there or something is not there? You know, here's something amazing, folks. I watched a YouTube video the other day, and in it, I was able to catch something literally that was so fast. I had to watch it a few times just to pause it at the exact moment, because the pause was obviously had to be on a second, but unfortunately, this flash, this image, was in a microsecond, in a frame, a single frame. So either is it 1/36th of a frame? I don't know. I'm not a photographer, but I could tell you it took me several attempts, and this is what I found. It was an infinity sign, and I didn't see what the first word was, but it was in red. The second one was Max. It sort of reminds me of like the logo of Newsmax, but the infinity symbol. Why would someone want to put that for subliminal messages in their YouTube video? Anyway, I just found that really interesting. Who is wanting to test that on us? Because if you all know this, the movie theater chains, I think in the 70s, it was the time they were prohibited from using subliminal messages. They used to flash images of popcorn and soda. That way, when they had intermission, like they used to, people would go out and buy popcorn and soda. That has been since prohibited, but clearly we're still seeing this. Okay, here. I want to get somebody else here telling me something cool. I mean, you guys can get me any direction you want. Is all this technology going helpful to mankind, Lars? Well, I believe so, but at the same time, and please, anyone don't take offense, I think we as humans are too arrogant and not as spiritually as we should be as far as technology. I'm not saying jump into your Bible or jump into religion. We're not prepped is one word you could say. We're not ready, put it that way. Look at all the changes we've gone through in that past 100 years. Just since the manned flight, since the Wright brothers, since 1904. Every single day there's a new gadget, new technology. I mean, Moore's Law, for crying out loud. If you all know what that is, that every 18 months the amount of transistors on a circuit double. And Moore's Law is coming to an end because technology is going faster. It's literally at an exponential rate. So the fact that I think that we humans are not ready to appreciate these technologies is why these technologies, although may be helpful for us, think about what we do normally. the first thing we did is when we split an atom was figure out a way how to turn it into a bomb, right? Military application. What is going to happen? The first thing that when we can time travel, are people going to start taking advantage of that in the wrongful way? Are people going to try to fix a disaster they've had in their life? Or are they trying to influence themselves, give themselves the winning ticket or the winning combination to the lottery or something like that that would change the trajectory of not just that person's life and the people around him for life, forever. I mean, the smallest thing can change everything. But at the same time, is if you think about it, I don't think us humans are meant to live this long. And meaning past 30, past 40. If you look at the Bible, which depending on what religion you are, is literally, I think the best way to put it is just historical documents. It's basically, if you wanted to get a glimpse of what was happening at the time, look at the Bible, because people who were beginning to write and read, you had to be an aristocrat or a king or somebody up there if you had time even to learn these skills. Well, what are you going to do when the first time you're able to write? Are you going to write there a fiction novel? No, I don't think so. You're going to write what's something important around you, or a story that's been handed down for centuries, or something like that. The point is most of the lives of the people that lived thousands of years ago seem to have ended in their 30s, 40s, latest, I think 60s, and even now is pushing it. Right now, with the average lifetime, I mean, I know a lot of people that have hit their 90s that I remember 30 years ago. Sure, there were people that were over 100, but in their 90s, it was pretty rare. But it seems to me a lot more and more folks are living till the 90s. And even later at this time. Now, it's not to say we don't have people die at younger ages, and I'm not talking about from homicides or accidents, I'm talking about natural causes. I mean, look at Jim Mars. We lost him fairly early. We could have gotten a few more decades out of him. It's advances that are keeping us going, but at the same time, they are killing us. Because I personally think that they've been looking at overpopulation as a problem. Look at the Georgia Guidestones. Why do they say that the sustainable life, the number of humans on this planet should be 500 million? Well, where are we now? Close to 9 billion. Think about that. That's almost 18 times that. Why were they put there? Does anybody have any theories as to why? Yeah, see, thank you, Wow Signal. I am smoking them while I got them. Thank you too, Lars. I appreciate it. It's really fun, I gotta say, interacting with you guys. You guys are really cool here. Okay, let me read back your Wow Signal. You heard me say I was about to tell something about Afghanistan. Care to talk about it? Afghanistan. I don't know what you talking about. If you could tell me Afghanistan. No. I think you're thinking of Kuwait. It was my brother. My brother, that's what convinced him that UFOs are real. Was by him telling me that he can get me a job if I wanted to, if I could get the clearances necessary, where I could look for aliens or UFOs, not aliens, UFOs, and get paid for it. And when I asked him, how you went from not believing any of this for 35 plus years, and now all of a sudden you're believing this, and he explained why. And I'm gonna repeat the story. Is because his roommate was a retired four-star general in the U.S. Army, who was being paid over $500,000 a year to use the most sophisticated equipment by a private military contractor. I'm not going to say who the PMC is, but they have, of course, any military base around this world, usually in another country, is where they need private military contractors. And don't think all private military contractors are these ex-Navy SEALs. Yes, they do need special forces to take care of those diplomatic envoys and stuff like that, but that doesn't mean they don't need people to do, say, networking or other stuff like that. So you don't have to be special forces to be in private military contractor. The point is, as I was saying, when it comes to Afghanistan, it wasn't specifically Afghanistan, this was about Kuwait, that they were searching for UFOs in our solar system. And I said to him, how do you know that they're non-terrestrial? And he said another statement that makes complete sense. He said, because if it's a drone, a space drone, then it's either ours, or we know it's Russians or China because we can spot them. And that's why he knew that, even though he wasn't told that they were looking for extraterrestrials, the word they used was unidentified objects, UOs. They didn't even go to UAPs. He just heard unidentified. That's what he heard. So no, I didn't have any story coming out of there. Now, I'm sure there is not a single place on this planet that does not have at least one story related to aliens or abduction or landings. Landings I love. I've always been curious to be one of those kids during the Zimbabwe landing, if you remember that, where school children in Zimbabwe had a craft that landed there and these beings interacted with them. Why children? And, it's always a very big curious question. And I believe when I was talking to Dave Spinks on Tuesday night, we talked about why. I think because, one, they're the prime bait for abduction because of the fact of their purity. Their simplicity, too, has a lot to do with it, I would think, but really it is about their purity as far as not being dependent on caffeine or anything like that. An adult mind that drinks coffee every single day or anything like that, I think you would not be as susceptible to telepathy. That's why, as a matter of fact, some of the people who are still abductees and are in their 60s and 70s that I talk to have been people that have never drank, never did a drug, never smoked, nothing in their entire life. And clearly these people are still having abductions. Yet they've slowed, because if you look at the cycles of abductions, they seem to start, if you're a woman, when you're pregnant. Well, let's take it back. Let's start with your child. Usually when you're in a womb is the first time that you'll be messed with. Then the second abduction comes approximately age 6, 5, maybe 7, around that. Another one comes, and this is depending on if you're male or female, around puberty. Now, it really changes because for women or girls at that young age, they start getting repeated pregnancies that, they may be virgins, but these extraterrestrials are impregnating them and then taking the fetuses out. And that goes on. That's why some abductees, and this is no joke, you can listen to some of these stories, and some of these are very credible people. These women will talk about having 10 up to 20, think about that, unexplained pregnancies. And with, of course, waking up one morning and no fetus, no miscarriage, nothing. So that's why I said it changes from men and women, because women seem to have a lot more contact. Boys, once they hit puberty, they do have a contact, and then they have not as many, because each time one male is taken, that male's sperm will last because of how many sperm come. You got billions of them in a small area, versus women who got one egg a month. So you could take, if they're that accurate, I would think they are, if we're doing it on Earth, think about the technologies that they've got in advance, I would think that they could make that one specimen from a male, and plus whatever they're messing with to create their own little hybrids, last for years. That's why there is so many more women that report abduction over a period of time during the pregnancy years, as they're so called. Okay, let's see what else. Anyone else want to take it somewhere interesting? Let's go somewhere right. Yeah, I want you all to be open here. I'm being open, and that's why we were about to cancel. But since I already scheduled this stream, I was like, you know what? We got fine friends here. I cannot let them down. So we got to go where they want to go. I was really hoping to talk to Joe today because of his studies that he's doing with abductees. remember, the Rh negative thing, folks, that came from Joe Montaldo. Everybody talks about it now. Linda Moulton Howe, Yvonne Smith. I mean, you name it. And the thing Joe said is that if you're an abductee, there's an 80 to 85% chance that you have blood that is Rh negative. That now, if you have Rh negative, are you an abductee? No. That doesn't mean yes or no at all. There's no absolute answer. It's the other way around, that most abductees have Rh negative. I've always wondered why. Now, I don't have that blood type. I don't know what it is, but I don't know. I guess I should probably find out. Let's see here. Lars was asking about what happened to twins, specifically if a left-hander survives. That's a really good question. The twins that I personally would actually, twins, some of my best friends, the Blake and Brent cousins, the third phase of moon. I'm actually going to be doing some live streams from Hawaii when I'm visiting them. I don't want to give the date in case it changes, but let's just say in the next couple months, max, I will be live in Hilo, in the Big Island of Hawaii, with the Cousins brothers doing some interaction, some filming, and maybe some on-the-scenes hunting. If you remember, they're the ones that discovered these, what can be called Hawaii Nazca lines, or this old compass, whatever it was. It's a previous video that I did that was given to them by permission from them, of course. And the cool thing about is you're not going to find that anywhere else. You're going to be other than Third Phase of Moon's YouTube channel, meaning that it's not on Discovery, it's not on Biography channel, it's sure as heck missed on History or any network, because none of the networks, no investigator even knows about it. That's why when I found out that story and they showed me that footage and I asked if I could use it, they said yes. They graciously said yes, and I was extremely happy to be able to share it with you, because I always thought the Nazca lines were an anomaly that only existed in Peru. But then Dan Hoquist did his own research when he was looking into the Marfa Lakes in Texas, and he found that we had our own Nazca lines here in Texas. I was like, okay, so now we got two locations. But the Cousins brothers found the ones in Hawaii, and they don't resemble anything else other than lines drawn into the sand or ground that are visible from a drone or an airplane, and were clearly drawn by somebody in the past, meant for somebody in the sky to view them. But the cool thing about those is that I thought the ones in Hawaii is where they actually linked. Watch that video and let me know what you guys think for yourselves. I'm surprised no questions. Thank you, Lars. Let's see who else we got here. Let me think of a good story to tell you. Well, I know what we could talk about here. What's going on in Antarctica? Antarctica. Okay. Now, I came across this video years ago that had an opening. And of course, this reminds me of the Admiral Byrd story, where in 1947, after World War II, he was tipped off that alleged Nazis were living in Antarctica. So he brought a whole fleet, literally a whole armada of ships down to Antarctica, and apparently was met with these craft that were outmaneuvering our craft, killed a lot of soldiers, and sported, I believe he said, or what is written, was Nazi signs. But then there goes the question, were these in fact Nazis working with the extraterrestrials, or were they in fact Nazis that had reverse engineered craft, or were they extraterrestrials that they just assumed were Nazis? And I'll tell you why they could have assumed it. Because 1936, Black Forest, Germany, there was an alleged crash and retrieval. And this was during the time of Hitler, before the World War II, before the invasion of Poland and the annexing of Austria and things like that. So 36, if that is true, and that is why there was some talk of these Nazi discs, well, then you would think then that they were able to solve the problem that we talked about in the beginning of gravity, because the German scientists seem to be, I think, either pressured or maybe had just a budget, or either that or just damn smart, because if they are so smart, why were the Russians and Americans in such a damn hurry to bring them over to each respective country? Think about it, folks. We literally rushed to bring them here in Project Paperclip. Now, back to Antarctica. This video showed this opening, and it was several miles wide and several miles long as well. And it did not look natural. It looked like a cave, but why didn't anyone explore it? I mean, there's a lot of things that you can look, I think, if we were given the budgets, but there's no airlines that can take you to Antarctica. Although I do know, as a skydiver, once a year, only one day, once a year for a good chunk of money, they'll let you make one jump. Literally, you got to wear an oxygen mask, even though you're not doing a halo jump, which is high altitude, low opening. And the reason why I know this is not just because it's advertised, is because there was one unfortunate incident where almost all the parachutists died. And it was because, unfortunately, it wasn't that their altimeters didn't work. They worked fine. They hit the ground before their parachutes opened, because at the altitudes they were, and with, even though it wasn't snowing, because you can't skydive if the weather's bad, I guess having that layer of nothing but snow really confused them as to how high they really were. And I could tell you this, as a regular skydiver, when I'm at 1,000 feet versus 700 feet versus 500 feet, it's very close. You can barely tell the difference. If I'm not looking at my altimeter, I can only make guesses of where I'm from. Now, can I tell you the difference between 5,000 and 10,000 feet? Sure. I mean, that's a massive difference. But when it comes down to the last 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet, and you're looking at just at your eyes, if you were to just look at the ground opening up and not looking up at your altimeter when to open, well, then you're going to make some serious miscalculations lead to your death. Back to Antarctica. Since that story was told on YouTube, and since the Admiral Burr story from Antarctica from 1947, there have been several more stories of Antarctica. And if those of you who've been paying attention to Linda Moulton Howe lately also know that she has been talking to, I think their code names are Spartan 1 and Spartan 2, to, I think she said Navy. I don't recall what sort of special forces, if they were even government special forces as opposed to private military contractors after all, that encountered these statues that showed the beginning of humans and essentially told the story of like Anunnaki. Anyway, the stories will never stop coming out of Antarctica, and I don't think any of us are going to get the answers we want until we can get down there. We're always being literally, unfortunately, hidden, I guess, is one way to put it, and protected is another way to put it, and not allowed. Unfortunately, it's like we're children and we're not allowed to go investigate where we should. Okay, let me see here. Yes, now, electric pheasant. We see balls of light a lot up here in Minnesota. You know, I'm wondering if you're going through a wave right now, because if you see a lot of balls of light a lot, I'd like to know how long this is happening, and do you see them in one particular location? Are they traveling to and from another location that you could see? And how many of them? I'm very curious to know if we're in a wave right now, because if you remember, a couple nights ago we actually spoke to someone who does statistics, and we talked about the fact that we are in the beginning of a UFO wave. So I'm very curious if Minnesota is in fact a hotspot. Okay, yes, Maria Maniscalco. Antarctica has an opening to the inner Earth. Yes, that is exactly what I was saying and mentioning, hinting to. That is what Admiral Byrd did say he encountered, and that is what those two people that I've been talking to, I just want to refer to them as Special Forces, to Linda Moulton Howe, that have returned from a trip there somehow and came back. They didn't come back with any physical evidence. I mean, that'd be great if they had, some piece of technology or photographic evidence. I think these days would be dismissed, so I think people want more than that. But they did come back with the tale of this statues. I'll leave that up for you to go into, to look for what she's got on Earth Files. Okay. Lars, question. What do you think about on a regular basis? Ooh, that's an interesting one. Oh, a lot of things. Let's see. Life. Why are we here? Where did we come from? What are we meant to do? I get curious about random shit all the time. The things that most people won't even think of, unanswered questions, I will go on, just tales of anywhere. I love psychology. I love sociology. I love economics. And history. Those four areas I've always loved. And unfortunately, when I was in school, and I did fairly well, I did not pay attention very much to history. And now I find myself going back and reading the same history books that I'd taken courses for, did well in, but clearly only did what I had to do to get by in class, in school. Didn't do it for a passion. Now that's where my passions lie. Now, Maria has a very interesting point here. Anti-gravity existed since the 1940s. I heard that. I've also heard the 50s. Either way, that puts it right around World War II, Roswell, and if it goes into the 50s, the wave of 1952, somewhere in that era. Again, folks, if we've already had the ability to create gravity, then we've already had the ability to travel through the multiverse, not universe, multiverse, and to different destinations and different times. Personally, if I can get in a time machine, I'd love to view a few things. I'd love to view the Titanic. I mean, as sad as that would be, I'd love to save all those people first. But man, can you imagine what kind of sight that would be? See such a monstrous ship literally at a 90-degree angle as it's being sucked into the ocean. Very, very sad sight indeed, but I'd be interested in seeing that. I definitely would be interested in going back to the time of Jesus Christ and seeing the crucifixion and seeing if I could see any of those miracles. I'd really like to take the time back to the time of Ezekiel. I want to see what he saw. What kind of drugs was he doing, or was he just really seeing something amazing with the four faces and the wheel within the wheel? Anybody who's not talking about those when they talk about UFOs or talk about Bible and UFOs, the book of Ezekiel has a lot of UFO and alien incidents. Okay, the entire Bible is filled with them, but it's particular in Ezekiel. It seems to me that he seemed to have the most. So that would be, if we can pinpoint that period in time, that would be one of the places I would go. Okay, do I think, Warren, the Nazi Bell research continued after the war, and are there still Nazi research programs ongoing? Okay, first of all, let me say this about Nazis. I think, one, the Fourth Reich is still ongoing. I don't think the Third Reich ended in Hitler's death, if you want to say it. It went. I don't believe he committed suicide. That's for darn sure, and I'll tell you why. Let me take some notes here so we can go back to this Nazi Bell for a second. Okay. Russia was the first country, or Soviet Union, the Soviets were the first to arrive at the bunker where Hitler and his mistress and some other bodyguards killed themselves. But Stalin refused to let anybody else see the skeleton. Decades later, when the Soviets allowed the skeleton of Adolf Hitler to be examined, they found that the skeleton was a couple inches either shorter or taller than Hitler actually was. And allegations are made that the skeleton was that of a female, not a male. What do I think? I think more than likely that Hitler did get away. Whether he died in the Andes Mountains, I mean, there's a lot of Nazis that made it to Brazil and Argentina and other places in South America. Or did he continue on to the Antarctica, some people put it. He had a stop in South America and on a U-boat ended up down there. Now, I always say the Third Reich ended when the military failed in Nazi Germany, but the Fourth Reich of Germany has prevailed by an economic invasion. That's right, folks. You heard me say it. We have still been invaded, infiltrated by the Nazis. What did they do? First, they took over Europe. Look at the EU. Look how much debt is owed to Berlin. Okay, that's huge right there. Countries such as Spain, such as Italy, such as Portugal, and Ireland, Greece, have so much debt to Germany that I believe one of the islands in my hometown, not my hometown, but my parents' hometown in Greece, they want to buy her. They say the Germans want to take over the Acropolis in Athens and one of the islands that has a lot of tourists to repay the debt. Nonetheless, they achieved what they wanted to achieve. So let's just put that fact straight. That Merkel right there, as we know, is leading this Fourth Reich of people in the world right now. Now, the Nazi bell, the Glock, as it's been called, is still been in our hands. Some people say that's what landed at Kecksburg. Other people say that's what we found after we continued to invade the rest of Germany after World War II. And see if I can go back here. I lost you guys in chat for a second. Let me get this fixed up. I personally would like to see where the heck we have advanced. And if we've already done this anti-gravity, then we should be capable of everything. I mean, why are we not walking right now and seeing a gray outside, or as Preston Dennett put, this lady who was jogging in the morning saw a 20 plus foot tall or 15 foot tall, praying mantis type extraterrestrial. We should have already been at that. This, from what I hear from all these interviews, is this universe and multiverse has been teeming with life. Why the hell are we still being hidden? This goes back to what Lars Saturn was asking earlier. So, okay, anyhow, I just actually started the questions going back in reverse order because I did have a crash for a second. So now I'm back here at the bottom. So Russell Grant says, Der Glock. That's right. You said it right. And yes, praise Keck and Kecksbergen. Lars, love Greece too. Yes, I have to love Greece. Okay, Maria says, Hitler lived in seclusion in Austria, just like where Whitey Bulger lived in California for 20 years till someone cashed on the bounty. Interesting. I never heard the story of him going to Austria. Although, if you remember, that's where I think he was born, and that's why he wanted to annex Austria so much, to be part of Germany. So that's very interesting. I've never actually heard that. And yes, I would think someone who had, who either just wanted the money or maybe had some beef would turn him in. Here's something really, I always want to ask this to anybody who comes from Germany. or in Israel. War is sad, folks. Nobody wants to kill people unless something's off, right? I mean, if you don't have compassion for other human beings, then something's not right. And so when you're taking orders and it's shoot to kill or be killed, well, unfortunately, you got to do what you got to do in war. Now, right now in Israel and Germany, they're still trying to prosecute the dying Nazis. Now, think about this. 1945, you would have to have been, if you were 18 in 1945, a private, okay? That would make you, so let's see, now we're looking at 74 years. You would have to be 92 years old minimum. Do you really think a 92-year-old, first of all, who was a private at the war, just a private would have access or be able to be involved in some master plans of something? No! They're only a private. They're not a colonel. They weren't Hermann Goering. So I think the old guys left over from that war, just let them die in peace. They already regret what happened. And especially those that had to fight against the Soviets. That 27 million loss is pretty damn sad. CIA, yes, Christians in action. I like clowns in America better. And actually, I've called them that. Mueller, you mentioned. Oh, don't get me started on Mueller, but I could tell you about Mueller. Mueller, oh man. I've been paying attention to him just because I'm a huge Donald Trump supporter, and also because of Jerome Corsi and Roger Stone and their own personal battles. Now, I'm saying this on air, and I really hope this doesn't come true. But because Mueller's team is trying to prosecute and already brought charges up to Roger Stone, I'm afraid they're going to convict him. And here's why I think so. As much as it would kill me, because Roger Stone's just a man. I mean, he's so cool. I love talking to him. I love having him on the show. He's the maker of kings, 5 presidents he's worked with. Think about that. Is it really illegal for you to reach out to, WikiLeaks? Why? Julian Assange? Are you kidding me? That's going to make it illegal? No, unfortunately, that's not the charge they're bringing up. They're trumped up charge. It's funny, trumped up, right? No, the charge they're saying is that he lied to Congress about it. And his answer is, I'm only human. It could have happened, it could have done it. But what does this have to do with the Russian investigation? The answer is absolutely nothing. In fact, Robert Mueller, everybody who he's brought charges against or who have pled guilty, not one has pled guilty as a result of so-called collusion with Russia. That's why this probe, witch hunt, is almost over. Yeah, Mueller's definitely deep state. That's very damn for sure. Okay, Russell Grant from Skinwalker Ranch, Utah. Ooh, you have some miles. Or is it miles? Well, I'd love to find out what the heck's going on the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah. I do know Robert Bigelow was very vocal, and he was giving interviews for a time, but then he shut off after some experience at the Skinwalker Ranch. When I was working for Third Phase of Moon before I started with my own show back in 2012, you remember I corrected that from last time. The point is I called to reach Robert Bigelow, and the answer was flat out no more interviews, no more. So something must have happened. I would really like to find out what the hell's going on there. Is it a portal? Is it somewhere where some downed craft happened to be? Or is it just a hot spot, but not just for craft, but for entities? And that opens up the whole other spectrum, is if the Skinwalker Ranch is in fact a portal for ETs, well then what the hell about Bigfoot and other ETs? Or I mean, if you call them ETs, because Bigfoot, I think, I'm starting to think more and more it's not cryptozoology, that I'm starting to believe, and more evidence of the researchers that have been, especially John Lear, he's been saying this for years. He's been saying that Bigfoot is an interdimensional alien. more and more Bigfoot researchers are saying that because of this creature's elusiveness, that it is in fact a non-terrestrial being. That's why I would like to find out more. But if we're not able to use technology that they are, then we have to wait for them to come here. Okay. They time travel capability, but it can go to the past easier than the future. Now that's very interesting you say that, Maria. I believe you're absolutely right, and I'll tell you why, my 2 cents on that. If you remember, we talked about Project Yellow Book. If Project Yellow Book changes what it shows you every time you look at it because of your emotions, which means your future's changed throughout the day and each day, well, then you're looking at several different timelines. But the past is already written. So I would think that if you are time traveling, to going into the past and visiting and observing is the key word, not interacting. Because if you're interacting, folks, well, then it already happened. That's why some people are saying the Mandela effect is is one of the mass time travel experiments of seeing of what they can influence today by touching something in the past, as easy as something like a line from Star Wars or something like that. But yes, Maria, I absolutely believe that the capability to travel to the past is greater than the capability to travel to the future, because the future is not written. Russell, yes, hey, if you're a socialist, hey, it's totally fine. And you know what? I love all people too, and I respect everyone and their affiliations of parties and their politics. There's no problem with me. I mean, I can't say that I would hate those people like that, because then I would have to say that I hate Greeks, because unfortunately right now, my own home country, my parents' country, is now under a socialist regime like Venezuela. And so, yeah, I mean, my old webmaster, Tom Schaefer, also goes by Tommy Shutter, where he hosts a show with Agi Nast, talks about the fact that, he's a very open socialist, and he thinks that the DSA is the future of us. Anyway, I guess that's a whole other debate we'll have some other time. Okay, Russell Grant, if you look at my avatar, it is the Sunrad and the Hannibal craft. I do see that. Is that a Mayan symbol? Where is that from? I'm very interested. Aquino interview was top-notch. Hey, thank you, Russell. And I want to thank also Lars for that, because the reason I brought back Aquino for the second time was because Lars Saturn asked to bring back Aquino. Okay, here, who else? Tim F. They've been trying to bust Stone for years. Yes, and it bugs the crap out of me. Oh, Roger Stone, if you have noticed because he's had the gag order, you noticed in his voice how it's changed? I mean, the amount of money that I know personally he's already lost for, in legal fees is close to $2 million. He's had to move out of his home, if either not sell it, rent it out, but I do know him and his family now live in a rented home. It clearly has taken enough of a toll on him where he is not the same relaxed man as he was, because his whole life has been under scrutiny. So yes, Tim F., they've been trying to, and I'm very afraid. But I am hopeful that Donald J. Trump will pardon him just like anybody else. Okay, let's go down through the rest of this. Maria, lock them up, they kill Jews like cockroaches. You're talking about what I was saying with the Nazis. Yes, sure. Nuremberg trials, all those people who made those orders to execute, and they executed not just Jews, they executed Soviets, they executed Catholics, they executed Greeks, they executed anybody, and gassed people. The unfortunate thing was, though, is the lowest level people were sucked into that war. They were born probably during or around the end of the First World War, and if they were privates at the time of 1945, then I doubt they would have had any ability to tell the people at a higher rank that I'm not going to shoot this person that you're telling me to, because they would have been killed, thrown in the brig. But yes, I agree with you. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to defend them. No, I'm just saying that all the Nazi hunters that have existed for, since the 50s, I think, literally not too long after the Nuremberg trials, where they decided to continue the search for Nazis, they did good. Adolf Reitzman, or whatever his last name, the one they caught in Buenos Aires in 1961, I believe, the Israeli Mossad caught and brought him back to Israel to stand trial. Yeah, he was someone who was of a high rank. But hey, anyway, that's a very touchy subject. A lot of us have lost family there. And, the only thing I could say is the Third Reich ended, but I think the Fourth Reich is still in control. Let's see who else. Lars, you are the man. I appreciate that. Yes, Maria, Mueller should be locked up with crooked Hillary. I'm going to add crooked in there. Why is it that all these emails and every other offense, why do we allow Ambassador Chris Stevens to be killed when he's sitting there with his team calling for help and nobody's allowed to go help him? Why did nobody from the State Department answer the damn phone? What were they covering up? The fact that we weren't allowed to be there? Well, clearly, if we weren't allowed to be there, we'd been found if we were started to get in, these firefights with the locals in Libya. But yes, Hillary, she has had 30 years, almost 30 years, actually more than 30 years, if you think about the time in Arkansas, in politics, to have some serious flaws. And I would think that if you opened that box and went down the rabbit hole of what Hillary Rodham Clinton and her husband Bill Clinton had done, I'm surprised that they're not in prison right now. The only reason they're not is because of this deep state. Why is the deep state screwing around with Roger Stone and Jerome Corsi and looking for a way for Trump? And thankfully, if you've heard, they decided they're not even going to ask Don Jr. or Eric Jr. or Eric Trump, the Trump sons, any questions, or to ask them to bring them back into Congress or to testify against for the special counselor. But yet, you don't have Robert Mueller, Rod Rosenstein, who was trying to entrap the president, which really could be a charge of treason, if you think about it. But no, it did not happen. Russell, yes, please do send me your email. Yes, I definitely would love to get some video on this. Okay, let's see here. Your cousin Corey is a cop and he shot at one on film with his service pistol. Ooh, really? Oh, Russell, I really would like to know that story. I want to know that, because I know here, at least in LA, where a lot of gangs live, if there was a craft to appear above, I can imagine some drunk gangbanger shooting off some shots with their Glock 9 or whatever they got on them. I have not heard very many stories of people shooting at extraterrestrials, but think about it. Fight or flight. When you're encountered with something that you've been told your entire life does not exist, a monster, and you're face to face with it, and if you have the mentality of that of a military officer, or someone in the military, or a police officer, well, of course you're going to think about safety and you're going to reach for your weapon. So if he shot at one of these extraterrestrials or beings, skinwalkers, I'd love to know this. Okay, Wow Signal 75, Bigelow said they're under our nose. Okay, that's an interesting statement too. They are under our nose. They have been under our nose, and they've always been here. Think about this. Linda Moulton Howe talks about that we've had extraterrestrials here for 250 million years, okay? 250 million years. That puts them at which LE event? LE, extinction level event. You had the one 65 million years ago, whatever, in that era. We've had 6 of them. The types of life that existed 250 million years ago, and the terraforming that would have had to have go on this earth to give way for Homo sapien to live would really be a huge challenge for another civilization, unless that civilization is a type 3 civilization or even a type 2, where they travel to different star systems and terraform and just use them as testing ground. And that goes back to the same question of when Lars asked what I was thinking about it. I've always wondered, who brought us here? Why are we here? Clearly there's another purpose than what we've been, meant to do, or what we're supposed to do, meaning, when I say supposed, I put in quotes, go to school, get a job, get a mortgage, get a wife, and what else? Not have a mind, I guess? Is that what they want? Mindless robots? No. That's why I love talking to you fine folks here, because you guys are as curious as I am. And you guys and gals have as much knowledge as I have. And this is what I love about speaking with you guys and gals. Okay. Russell Grant. You've never seen a Bigfoot. It could be real for sure. And yes, I have seen the amber orbs that appear once in a while. It's crazy out here, dude. Bigelow's correct. Yes, I really, really, really would like to see that. Lars, you are the man, too. Maria, agree. Russell, best friend is real, along with real Dogman ECT. I don't know. Rake Dogman ECT. Maybe you could tell me more about that, Maria. Okay. They are trying to interbreed with humans, Bigfoots, that is. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised. They've been trying to interbreed humans with a lot of different species. The Greys in particular. And this is one of the craziest things that I remember Dr. David Jacobs, his whole second book, Walking Amongst Us, is based on the fact that over the decades, from the time of Betty and Barney Hill, and I'm only saying Betty and Barney Hill, but clearly we've had abduction go back a lot longer in past. If you think about the creation of us, if you think about Bob Lazar talking about the 63 or 62 or 62 or 63 external corrections we've gone so far. But even more recently, if you look on my website, I've come across an image from a British medical journal, 1895, where it shows what could be called now as 2 slim gray aliens operating on either another gray alien or something, a humanoid, on a table. I'd like to say it was human, but it looked more humanoid. Okay, Palladium Labs. Hey, Palladium, if you're interested in coming in, by all means. See, you were telling people, going to tell them that, hey, this is thunder. Are you going to tell them? Let's see who else here we could tell. Pam, hello, my social media manager, Pam Vrettenberg. Remember, folks, visit her site, UnitedTruthSeekers.com. Okay, Maria. Yes, I heard in the past future we could see the dinosaurs and the past. Now, here's an interesting, in the near future, I heard that DNA dies after 20 million years. Now, or not 20 million, sorry, 20,000 years. So if you have a woolly mammoth's DNA, then you can clone it. But what about something like Jurassic Park? How can we find DNA that was encapsulated, maybe frozen in ice, or anything like that? The problem is if in 65 million years ago, the extinction level event that ended the dinosaur life as we know it, if it was because of a meteor hitting Earth, unless it was a weapon, I mean, who knows? What if the ETs got bored of that species and said, let's try something new on for Earth? We don't know. The point is if there was 2 years of a nuclear winter, meaning enough dust was kicked up into our planet, in our atmosphere, that all life died, then really I don't think there are any places that this dinosaur bones, not dinosaur bones, clearly they're around, any dinosaurs could have been frozen or kept somewhere intact to where their DNA could be untouched for 65 million years. Now, have they found it and then not told us? Very possible. I mean, we've been lied to all our lives by the governments of the world. But yes, I don't think that it's too out of reach to think that some billionaires are probably having or have dino parks, private dino parks, literally like Jurassic Parks. I would think that it's in our very near future, as a matter of fact. Okay, Russell Grant, you've made it to Germany, France, and England so far, next to sunny Greece. Yes, when you get to Greece, I'm going to tell you some places to visit. And it's ironic, Russell, I've actually been to those countries except Germany. No, I've not been to Germany. I've been to Switzerland. I've been to France. I've been to England. Of course, I had to go stop by the Netherlands. I had some friends when I was doing raves, DJs from the Netherlands in Amsterdam. And yeah, that's unfortunately the only places I've made it in Europe. Because the thing is, every time I go to a cool new city, every time I go back to Europe, I can't just go to somewhere new. I do, but I want to go somewhere again that I visited because it was such a cool place. So that's why I haven't been as many. Pam, you asked where Joe is. Joe, when we were waiting for him, and if you guys know already, if you've caught the rhythm of the show, he's always 5 minutes late, if not 10, up to 15 minutes. Today we were waiting for Joe. We were on at 15 minutes past him. And he said he couldn't do it. He'd had to reschedule. I said, listen, I got people in the chat that I'm not going to let down. So I'm just going to go for it and see if anyone wants to call in. Cool. If no one wants to call in, then hey, I'll just look at questions and take you guys where you want to go. Okay, here. Mind you, ladies and gentlemen, I am just going through the questions or through the chat and interacting with all you folks. Let me give you the number again, folks, if anybody wants to call, so you can actually be on air with me and we can have some interaction. It's 818-491-3348, and I'm putting it here in chat, folks. Now, today, you can join in. You absolutely can join in, because usually when I am with UPRN, I have to be connected to their station, and therefore their call-in number has to work. Today, you can use my direct call-in number. So anybody want to take advantage of it? Well, folks, you are free. Okay, let me go back in time now. The Clintons make the mafia look like Boy Scouts. You're absolutely right, Maria. Hillary is very awful. Yes, thank you, Russell. Hillary! I like that. Hillary has over 100 bodies that were whistleblowers that were subsiding. Oh my gosh, yes. Journalists, whistleblowers. You've heard of these strange car accidents of someone who just stumbled upon the story that was about to go to, write it or tell it to someone, and then they never made it. Yes. Unfortunately, I believe she has had the influence, especially her, to have had the ability to do that. And so have other people in that regime. The deep state. The deep state. Okay, who else here? San Diego sales VP. Oh, Russell, wait. Miss Russell, I thought you are in where the ranch is. If you're out here near in San Diego, well then heck, you're not that far from me. Okay, let me go back here. Oh, thank you, Russell. I got it, and I will write that after. Maria says, Hillary and old Bill sold cocaine back in the Arkansas days. Oh, yeah, that's a fact. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you an interesting story that I don't think I've ever told you guys. I knew this Navy SEAL who served in Vietnam. Let me get a drink of water here. Hold on, folks. This is going to be an interesting story. And he said that in 66 to 68, he was a Navy SEAL in the Vietnam War. And a lot of his missions were in Cambodia and in Vietnam, in that area. He said the interesting thing, though, was he said that there was only... Ooh, who's here? Someone on Skype trying to come in. If someone's trying to come in, we can bring someone in. Did that just come into the chat? No. Anyway, you guys are more than welcome to try it again. Who's ever trying to try, I'd love to get someone in here. Okay, so back to this Navy SEAL. His name was Bruce, his first name, that's all I could tell you. And he said that there was only 3 SEAL teams. That SEAL Team 6 was just created to make the enemy believe there were more than 3 teams. Now, nowadays you hear about SEAL Team 7 and so on and so forth. He said that every mission was, every operation was given to them by a Navy SEAL or by the CIA. And then he said after he was in the CIA, after he finished the Navy, the same CIA agent or officer approached him and offered him a job working as a private military contractor. He said he did 2 of these gigs where what he did was he brought cocaine back, and 68 and 69, one was from Colombia, one was from Peru. Both times he and a few other soldiers from his old SEAL team, which was at the time SEAL Team 3, and 68 to 16, 66 to 68, which carried over to him in these private military jobs. They had full authority to kill anybody who got in their way, including U.S. Coast Guard or anybody like that. And they said that they had a giant cargo ship full of cocaine, and they had a small fishing boat, I believe they said, in front with the submarine behind it chasing it. And both times they were successful where nobody had to die. Okay, now we got Pam Vredenberg on. Pam, welcome to joining live with me.
Hi, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you for breaking this up, because I was hoping someone here would join in the chat, since we did have, unfortunately, Joe cancel, but I didn't want to let at least 5 people down. I mean, we got a lot of cool people here that are in this chat, as you see every night.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, absolutely, Pam, I can hear you. You got any stories for us you could tell? Or any questions for me? Or anybody from the chat you want to mention?
No, I fell asleep and nobody called me to wake me up.
That's okay. Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. So that's
I'm
okay.
really not sure what's going on.
Well, here, I'll give you the backstory again. So, as you know, Joe Montaldo, the station owner, was meant to be the guest tonight. And the reason why I wanted to talk to him is because since he's trying to get back into being involved in more with aliens, he's been on 3 seasons or episodes of 3 seasons of Ancient Aliens. He's done a lot of work with this Rh negative and abductees and putting not memories but ideas into these abductees' heads. That way they could do a large study over time, that if they're abducted they could ask these subliminal questions if they're all told it. And so as you know, unfortunately, I could only schedule a live stream on the dot, and he's always been late, 5 minutes usual, sometimes later than that. Today, it was 16 minutes past the hour when I finally got a hold of him and said, hey, you ready? And he had to cancel, and I decided there was no way to let these fine people down, and that's what brought us here tonight.
Right, so what is your topic you're talking about tonight?
Oh, we went everywhere. We went from Antarctica. We went from... We're talking about anything. Anything goes at this point. We went from Robert Mueller. We went from Nazis, the Glock, the Bell. We went from Ben Rich's story. You name it. Whatever people want to talk about. You know, tonight's their night.
Uh-huh.
And
well, if there's
even
no
though
questions,
you're on,
I don't know if there are. Have you told them about your visit with Dr. Turry when he came to California?
No, actually, let me tell you guys. I mean, okay, yes, I have not told everybody about that yet. And yeah, he's a really cool, fun cat. He came to visit this past weekend. He was in Mexico on Saturday, and then on Sunday he was with me. Monday he was doing a television show before he went back to Arizona. And It was very interesting that my mother, like other Greek mothers or Greek ladies, read tea grinds, where Greek Turkish coffee is very similar. And what you do is essentially, I believe I've told you this before. You drink the coffee until there's just a little layer left of these grinds. And then you flip the cup over in the saucer after you kind of swirl it around and let those grinds sort of roll down, this paste roll down, and then you read the images. The crazy thing is, she always tells everyone this is just for fun, this is not meant to be taken seriously, yet everything she read of Dr. Turi's cup was accurate to the bone. She said she sees there an E. Does that mean anything, or an M? He said, yes, my mother's name is Maria. He says, I see a woman with something on her head. What was this? And then Dr. Turi said, yes, that is also, my mother used to wear this. Then she said something along the lines of, I see an L, E-L-L-E, the name, and who is this to you? Every single point that my mother had read to Dr. Louis Turi was actually accurate. He in turn gave her a reading and me a reading. There was nothing that got me too much to the reading except those 3 dates we've talked about on air that I've asked him about, that I'm still waiting to see what's happening on those predictions. The first one is supposed to be March 29th. The second one is April 7th, and the third date is April 20th. He's also reiterated what he said on the show, that what he could see in his eyes, in his third eye, the next 2 and 3 years are going to be very, much turmoil, very tumultuous for us times. I don't know if it's because of the upcoming election. I don't know if it's from these mass terrorist attacks. I have something, and I could post this for all these people. This is really sad if anyone wants to see this, but I do have the footage of the New Zealand massacre. I was given it to by a kind friend here who is in chat. And unfortunately, it's very sad footage, but I have seen it, and in New Zealand, you can carry a penalty of 10 years just for carrying this. They're really going very bad about this, but I can see why. I mean, it's very, very graphic. And also the man's state of mind. It's makes you think, what the heck's going on? Because he seems so calm. 50 people die, over 200 shots were fired, and to him it's like a walk in the park. I really think that has to do with MK Ultra or something like that. Okay, let's see who else we can get in here. I'm going to put the number out again. So, Turi was here. We went out to eat. I took him out to Something's Fishy. And let's see here. Maria, your mom's name was Margaret too. Her name was a Peg. Interesting. Nice. Margaret is a beautiful name. My mother's Maria, actually. Lars, not playing anymore. Oh, yes, Lars, if you need that recipe, I can get you one from my mother. She'll give you any Greek recipe you want. Interesting. Rolf Pfeiffer Muller. I like this, how you put this. Heard Dr. J. YT channel of Christos S. Jacobs, the lifting regarding the last episode, Bliss. Interesting. And say no to drugs. Cocaine ruin families. I see that. Anything else? Any story you'd like to tell us, Pam, before we wind down? Unless anyone else has any other questions here too.
Right now I'm logging into Twitter to see what's going on.
Okay. Let me see. I'm going in reverse order here because every time I open up the chat, it's just showing me the newest ones. I want to thank all you fine folks who have been here. I'm sorry if there's any bad transmission. It should be clear. Yes, Lars, please call in here. Let me give you the number. There you go. Call in here if you want. I'll bring you in. We'll bring in Lars. Lars, we're going to bring you in, my friend. You hang tight. And take it away. Okay, folks, hang tight as we bring in a fine person in the chat. Let's see here, get this right. Here, why is it going to merge calls? Answering this call will place your current call on hold, or you can merge calls. No, you want to merge calls. Let's try to merge this. Oh, hold on, we got a missed call. Lars, we got you on?
Hello?
Yes, you're live. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Dude, I'm nervous.
Why?
Because you are a genius. You're very, very smart.
Thank you, I appreciate that. There's a lot more information I need to learn, that's for darn sure.
Are we serious?
Yeah, oh yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'm always so curious about random stuff, and you know why I bring back some of these amazing people, because just to pick their brains, you know.
Dude, Michael Quino is probably pound for pound one of the best people I have ever seen or even heard. Michael Quino is just, dude, he's a genius.
He is, and I definitely agree with you, and I know this both because not only is he a good friend, I consider him a mentor, and he has an IQ.
I would be lucky. I mean, look at you bragging on him. Unbelievable. Go ahead.
His IQ is in the 140s. Mind you, Einstein's was 144.
Well, dude, you're a very, very smart person. I mean, you know IQ. Are we live?
Yes, we are. We're live.
We're live, Lars.
Okay.
Hello, this is Pam.
Okay, I'm a little weird. Okay, I'm sorry.
Don't
I'm
apologize.
sorry.
We're having fun. This is YouTube. This is for everybody to enjoy. You know, this is why I decided to continue with this, even though we had a guest cancellation, because I wanted to thank all you fine folks.
Anyone that wants to know, make sure that you're making a good friend with someone who has a fucking radio show. This is amazing. This is amazing. Dude, I'm sorry. But at the same time, I mean, let's talk about some things, Dr. J. I mean,
sure.
Dude, you're a very, very, hold on, please. You're a very, very smart person. And let's not get too carried away about things. What the fuck did that guy in New Zealand do? That guy, what happened? What?
Hello?
Look, I'm not going to drop the F-bomb again. Hello?
Yeah, hold on. We have another caller. 431, hang on 1 second. You're still on air. I'm going to let Lars finish his and then his question, and I'm going to give a response, and then we're going to come to you. Finish. Go ahead, Lars.
Okay, great.
Lars, you were asking about what was going on in New Zealand. Personally, after viewing the footage, I think the guy was probably an MK Ultra.
We have serious altercations with dude.
Well, remember, think about this. What happened after the Prime Minister of New Zealand banned all sorts of weapons because of that incident? Second of all, the imagery, the 16 minutes that I saw are so sad because 50 people die and the guy acts like nothing. I mean, he's casually playing music and listening to music. Something is not right.
The one that broke my heart was there was someone
The
on
lady?
the street
Yeah. And he said, help me. She said, help me twice, and he shot her. Okay, let's get to this next caller. Lars, you can stay on by all means.
John, is
Yes.
there a way that you can just make a round table?
We got area code 431.
Sure.
431.
I'll be there.
You're on with us, 431.
Hello?
Yes. What's your name?
Hello.
Hi. Personally, I would just love to remain anonymous.
Sure.
Guys, if that's okay.
Sure. We'll just call you by your
awesome.
area code. If that's
Okay,
fine with you,
great.
buddy. Yeah.
So, I've never really done anything like this before, so I'm kind of winging it. But, I definitely saw an opportunity, and I truly feel like this is a synchronicity for me, because I am going to be getting my first regression therapy session on the 30th, so I'm super excited.
Do you have any
but yeah.
memories of seeing any lights, or maybe seeing any non-terrestrial beings or anything like that?
Yeah, I was just going to get to that, sorry. Yes, I did have an experience, and I would like to call my experience a contact experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'll just get in with the story.
Yeah, please.
Okay, great. I come from a really small rural community in the middle of Manitoba in Canada. So, it's a lot of green life and pretty much in the middle of nowhere. And this is back in 2014, mid-August, about, 12:30 at night. And, in my particular hometown, it's like a ghost town in these small towns at that time of night. So we're coming home and, just from a night out, and my friend noticed something in the sky. And also to keep in mind is we were both atheists for quite a few years before this happened to us. So it was like really life-changing. But to get on with the story.
Wait, real quick. You said in the sky. Can you describe the shape, the size, maybe, and what was it doing?
Absolutely.
Good question. Great question.
So we come around the corner and we see these 3 red orbs. And the funny thing about them was that they were following each other in a perfect circular formation. And, it was just so profound, and it was just, defying all, any sort of laws of physics. It was just like, it was totally unrealistic in a way, but yet we were seeing it with our own eyes. So we knew it wasn't, fake or whatever. But I immediately felt like I was being, analyzed, like I was being watched. And I felt like my immediate reaction was to just, get out of their, sight. So I grabbed my phone, and I'm like, we need to get out of here. And she's almost, in a trance-like state, just staring at them. Because the way they were moving was very hypnotic, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. You hear a lot of stories of people being mesmerized, and sometimes as if these craft are connected to you or sending messages telepathically to the people below.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I definitely felt like, okay, this state, well, I don't want to say it like this thing, but I didn't know what it was. And I felt like it was definitely acknowledging that it sees us,
Yes.
And to make it even weirder, so when I grabbed her and I'm like, let's go inside, we go around the building to the back, and in my peripheral, I could still see everything. I could still see it in the sky. And, we went to the back of the apartment. I saw that my apartment light was on. So I knew that there was somebody else in the apartment, and I just needed another witness, to make sure that I wasn't going crazy, because, it was just so unreal. And so I go inside, and it's my older sister. So I take her outside and see what we were looking at. As soon as it's me, my friend, and my sister standing there, the red orbs suddenly started to change. And this is the part that I really struggle with, because it sounds so unreal to most people, but what ended up happening was they pretty much morphed from 1 to 2. So at the beginning, there was about 3 orbs in the circle. At this point now, there was about 6 or 7 of them, and the circle was larger. And at this point, my legs had physically started shaking. I was in so much terror. I don't think I've ever felt so afraid in my life. And like even talking about it kind of brings me back to those feelings. It makes me kind of uncomfortable.
Think that you lost any time?
That's the thing. I'm gonna get to that, but just to finish,
Sure.
With the red orbs, what ended up happening was that really just totally floors me is that they changed shapes and colors. So at first it was a red circle, and then just simultaneously it just switched within a second, and it turned into a green triangle. And then it switched again, and it turned into a blue square. And then it switched again, and it was a purple rectangle. And it just kept doing it over and over, one by one. And at this point, I just, like, lost it pretty much. And I told my sister, like, we had to go inside. And, you know, that's the part. Like, I didn't have any missing time, at least not that I could remember. Because I definitely was traumatized by this. Like, I did suffer from some PTSD afterwards because the nightmares that I had afterwards actually felt more like memories rather than nightmares. I got triggered and put down this whole rabbit hole. But, you know, one of the most profound things that I find that happened was when it was all done and over and I went into my house, I locked myself in the bathroom and I looked in the mirror and I told myself, you did not see this and this never happened. And I think that just goes to show how strong, like, denial comes into play. You know what I mean?
I don't think
absolutely.
that's strong at all.
Go ahead,
I don't think that's strong at all. I'm sorry. I don't think that's strong at all. I mean, you're actually withering to your own emotions, and I don't understand that. Please elaborate.
No, you didn't. I'm sorry. No, you didn't let me finish. This is just the beginning
I'm
of
sorry.
the story. It's been 6 years since then. So,
6 years. That's a long time.
Yeah. Let me finish.
Yeah, please, let's let her finish. Let's go. Keep going, ma'am. We're here.
Okay. So I did, I, you know, looked in the mirror and I told myself, like, you know, this didn't happen to me because I was so afraid. You know, as somebody who didn't know anything about this, I didn't know how to react. And I think, you know, the natural human reaction is fight or flight. Obviously, at that moment, I chose flight. You know, it was just a natural response to me. So it wasn't like I was trying to be biased or negative towards them. That's definitely nothing that I was trying to portray. I was just trying to forget it and doing it the best way I thought I could do it. You know, 6 years later down the line, I realized that I was going to face my fears and learn about it because I know it has a lot to do with the origins of where I came from. You know, I don't even believe that I'm from this planet. So, and you know what? My whole life has been ostracized, judged, belittled, and alienated for pretty much just being myself. So if I have to stand my ground, I'm going to fucking do that, regardless.
Absolutely. You know? And you know what? Facing your fears is a must because you're always going to be traumatized or troubled by this or curious about this incident.
She did a very good job. And I totally respect what she's saying 100%. And thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you, Dr. J. Dude, the world is a better place with you in it. I know that.
Oh,
and thank you so much for. Hold on, please. But thank you so much for your guest sharing her ideas of what she thought, what happened, and all that. And she's a phenomenal guest, and thank you so much.
Well, it's people like you, ma'am, for Area Code 431, who telling your story and for the first time more people like this, if people out there are harboring stories, please tell them. You could stay anonymous any way you want, because there are a lot of people who are in the same boat. People have had experiences that they've bottled up.
Ask questions. It's very rare that Dr. J just lets his mind go, and with a great guest like this, take advantage of it. Seriously, take advantage of this. These are very, very intelligent people. I mean, it's fact. It's 100%. And I take advantage of this. Please. All of you, all the 38 or 40 or 100 or a billion, I don't care what they are, but please take advantage of this. This is amazing. A great guest with a great person that does this thing. Dr. J is, dude, I love that guy. I love him. And thank you so much for being here.
I'm a big fan of Dr. I'm a big fan. So I definitely know where you're coming from.
Good Lord, that hurt. What happened? What happened?
We got some, I don't know where that came from, but I heard that too.
Wow.
Gremlins.
Yeah, I was just going to say, was that some sort of...
I got it.
Oh, okay, it's Pam's. Well, I appreciate you also telling us this story, because, like I said, this is when I always say at the end of shows, disclosures in your hands. People, if you have experiences or contacts or anything like that, you're not going to be judged, especially these times. Not on this show, ever.
Yeah.
And in this era, 30, 40 years ago was a far different place. Now you can talk about a UFO incident. You could talk about being abducted. You could talk about being contacted. And you're not going to be thought of as different, because so many millions of people have. Now, you mentioned that you don't think you're here. You don't think that you are human, right? You mentioned that, right?
No, go for it.
What I was going to say was, I'm sure you've heard of walk-ins.
Walk-in?
A walk-in is a non-terrestrial soul that when a human has, say, an accident, I remember this one case of a woman who had died in an avalanche. Her soul of the human walked out, and in the body walked an extraterrestrial soul. And that was my question to you, is do you think that you're living in a human body with a non-terrestrial soul?
That is a really good question. I can't say exactly for sure, because, that is the first time I've ever heard that. But I really, really kind of have a little bit of a sense of, like, I kind of know what you're saying, like, and maybe I do feel that way in a little bit, but I don't want to say for sure, you know what I mean, because I don't fully have that answer. But this is another reason why I chose regression therapy, not only to help me with my, UFO contact, but also, to help resolve other issues in my life, and to also, gain a sense of where I came from. Like I said, when I was a child, I was completely different from everyone in my family, and I stood out like a sore thumb, and for some odd reason, I would look into the sky at night, and I would just have a sense of hope. Like, for some reason, there was just somebody out there, that, I don't know, was going to come and get me one day. I know it sounds really crazy, but...
No, it doesn't, actually.
It definitely... Yeah.
Seriously, I've heard very many tales just like this, where people felt like they didn't belong in their own families. Their interests were different. Their minds thought differently than their siblings. And they've always felt that they belonged to a home, and they looked up in the sky as if somebody or a family member, like their sky brother or sky sister or sky parents, were out there.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing I wanted to say was that after it had all happened, I, chose to do a lot of extensive research, with the different types of species. And in fact, that's what kind of brought me into the show tonight because I saw the title, which said, excuse me, like different kinds of species and stuff, and the origin, and you know, I definitely didn't know that there were that many, and that there are even more that we probably don't even know about.
Oh, absolutely right. I could actually tell you right here. First of all,
Yeah.
Richard Doty said when he was briefed into the ET program, he was only told about 6 or 7 different species that are here. Other people mention that there have been as many as 60, and even other people talk about Carrie Cassidy being for one. Project Camelot says that we've had about 240 different species, including light beings, that have visited us.
Yeah.
Interdimensional, time travelers to straight up extraterrestrials. And someone made a comment earlier that they're right under our nose. That's absolutely true. They probably live underground. I don't know if you've heard this interesting story I was telling the other day.
I absolutely have.
About LA in the 30s. They were mining for gold. And what happened is they came across these caverns. And they found these, what they called lizard people. And these lizard people made it known, like, get out. And they dynamited the caverns, or the entrance to the caverns, and sealed them off, and then built the city above. And that story has been circulating through Los Angeles since it happened in 1936, around that era.
Yeah, it definitely sounds familiar. You know, I've definitely heard stories of, different kinds of, even hybrids of, things that may have escaped from, who knows, bases or labs or whatever. Because I do feel like that they also create their own species out of, DNA from different types of animals and ETs and humans. I don't want to get too into it, but, I definitely think that there's a lot of manipulation, and it's really sad. But at the same time, I think that, right now there's a lot of light being shown to that, it's pretty interesting to see.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That would be a very eye-opening experience. Go for it, Lars.
Question. Thank you for the guest. I'm kind of nervous. Do you believe that we are all connected in some strange way?
Yeah.
I personally believe the same thing too. I believe we are. If you think about string theory, then we all are, and not just connected here on Earth. We are connected to the Earth, and we're connected to all matter, including space, time, other planets, other dimensions, the sun, other stars.
Let the guest speak.
We're all connected.
Let the guest speak. Let the guest speak. Let the guest speak. I believe she has something she has to say. Please proceed.
Me? No, I would.
Yes, you.
No, I think, I don't want to, DJ, unless you're finished speaking, I don't want to interrupt or anything you were saying. Do you want to continue?
No, the floor is yours. The floor is yours now. Please, take the time, expand. Show the light, please.
Well, another thing I just wanted to say was that, before my experience, I didn't think that anyone else had been through what I had been through. When I heard stories about UFOs as a kid or as a teenager, it was just like, a light in the sky or maybe a moving star or something. But with the experience that I had with, seeing the different geometric shapes and, how they were all primary colors and primary shapes. And the funny thing was that, it was a circle, a triangle, a square, and a rectangle. And, those are one of the first shapes that we learn about, as a child, I specifically remember.
What do you think about those shapes? Why do you think that there's shapes like that?
Well,
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure. All I know is that I feel like it was a form of communication, or maybe trial communication, trying to say we understand you, or I don't exactly know, and that's why I'm going to go and get some help.
You're too smart for your own good. You're too smart for your own good. I thank you so much for. My God.
Let me tell you guys a really interesting story. A few years ago in Catalina, there was Boy Scouts camping out. Catalina is a small island right here off the coast of Los Angeles. And over the course of 8 hours at night, what happened was these 200 children, boys, along with adults that stayed with them overnight, had observed these giant spheres coming out of the ocean, and out of them came about 200 ship over the span of 8 hours, and they included triangles, discs, squares, rectangles. 8 different shapes and sizes, and they said one specific triangle looked to be having some sort of trouble because it would launch up from above the water, and it would go up with one object on each side of it, and then it would immediately fall back again, not going through the water, but sort of landing on the water. It seemed to be having trouble on its own. That's why it had these other craft essentially assisting it. These children talked about these it happened over 8 hours, and at the end, all approximately 200 craft went back into these spheres, which went back into the ocean. And I've had a chance to interview one of these children along with Preston Dennett. Kids don't lie.
That is a serious claim. That is a serious claim, what you're saying.
Yes. You could look it up. This has been investigated.
Oh, no! Dude, I don't doubt you at all. I believe it.
I believe it because after what I saw, and went through, to me, most things are very believable. Before when people used to tell me things, I would definitely just immediately dismiss it and be like, okay, this is just some crazy person. But now I think twice, and I'm like, okay, maybe this person is. Because
you're smart. That's why you second guess it, because you're smart. Anyway, sorry.
431, you still with us?
Yeah.
No problem. Keep going. Any thoughts? Any questions? Anything else to the story you'd like to add? Because I think there's going to be a lot to tell once you have your regression.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way. I definitely feel like this is a big part of my life, and it's an important moment right now for my soul. And like I said, the synchronicities have been there, and I definitely feel like this is one of those.
I think you coming here right now is a synchronicity, as a matter of fact. It is, honestly, and to be able to tell the story that you haven't for 6 years, that's huge.
Yeah, I've had chances in the past few months to share my story, but on the particular platform, I didn't feel comfortable. And, just being able to observe the people who were a part of the show, I just didn't really resonate with it. But with you, I definitely felt a sense of welcoming energy. So I took that leap of faith, and I am just so grateful for it because I just feel like my spirit has lifted,
Absolutely,
but,
absolutely.
I'm chopped liver then.
No, don't say that. Say that. Anyhow, listen, we are running out of time, folks. I just want to see if anyone has any last minute questions, comments, or anything you want to say, especially since we have you two on the air with us and Pam Vrettenberg as well. So that's 4 of us on this. Basically, you could almost equate it to a 90s party line, but we're actually live here. So, anything else if anybody want to say?
Did anybody else want to call in? We had 2 people in the chat saying they wanted to call in.
Yeah, and here's the phone number one more time. It's 818-491-3348. I'll write it one more time in chat. 818-491-3348 if there's any other takers.
I didn't want to interrupt anyone talking before.
No, by all means,
I'm gonna
because we're
let-
getting this huge revelation, and you know this is what I always look for. I look for those stories that are not told, because you know, for instance, Travis Walton, a good friend of mine, he had his experience in 1975, but there isn't anything new, right? It's people who have never told their story who I always look at for more information. Sure, it's great to bring the people on who have told their story before to tell it to people who had never heard it, or to have them answer questions that people have always wanted to ask. But it's people who have never had a chance to tell their story that I always look to the most. Jack Osborne, I mean, he had a story to tell that wasn't his own, but a friend of his. That, too, was another revelation because he had never publicly told it. Anyhow.
Wow. You know, and
Go ahead.
sorry, I just wanted to say I'm gonna let you go. But thank you so much for this amazing opportunity. And you know what? When my regression is done, I will keep on a lookout for the next time you have a
Absolutely.
free time
Tuesday,
too.
every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and other times. Just, you know, click on the notifications on the channel, and once you see we're live, you know, use this call-in number, and if we're on UPRN, use the 504 number. One way or another, you can get in. Especially if you're writing in chat, you know, you could use a anonymous name of any sort and just ask, what's the call-in number?
Absolutely. Okay, you guys have a great night. You have a great night too, Pam.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, and
Yes.
thank you. Lars, any last
great.
minute? Have a good night. Lars, any last minute comments or questions before we go?
No, I just want to thank your guest very much for spending her time, and that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, she was great. This is what we exist for, to learn from other people, because I hope her story inspired other people to tell their story. That's what counts. And that's really what counts. Well, listen, with that being
Thank
said...
you for joining us tonight, Lars.
Yes, as Pam said, I want to thank everybody out there. I want to also thank Joshua Terrius, who's my assistant producer. Of course, Pam Brettenberg, I could actually thank you on the air tonight. Thank you so much for all your hard work behind the scenes and for your...
You're so welcome.
Yes, and of course, the most important people to be thanked, like I said, are everybody listening. As I always say, the disclosure is in your hands. Please be active. Don't just be passive researchers. Take the information you hear and do whatever you can to help with the disclosure movement. Also, let me just say this. The only thing you need to remember when it comes to this show is the name of it, folks. Dr. J Radio Live. That is DRJ Radio Live. drjradiolive.com is the website. Minds.com, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Flickr, Tumblr. Pam knows them all. She manages them all.
They're on the screen right now.
Exactly. And she made the fine imagery.
You have your Patreon group? Or
we do.
page?
We do. The Patreon page is set up.
The archives, the
And
newsletter.
Yes, and the
Facebook page.
Yep. So all those are good, and by Monday we should have a new newsletter too. So we'll be ready to go.
Is the guest still online?
No, and now we are officially going off air.